Hello, welcome to We're the Leaders We're Looking For, a podcast from United Way of the Wine Country, produced with tech support and direction from Brant Hokinga and Tiv Branding. We are here to share the voices of our neighbors, change makers, and everyday leaders who are building a region rooted in belonging, resilience, and justice. And I'm Lisa Carreño. I'm president and CEO of United Way of the Wine Country. And my co-host is Laurie Lynn, a longtime friend and the owner of the Connection Company. Thanks for joining us, and let's get started.
Hello, beloved community. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to start this first podcast with a little disclaimer. The audio we recorded for this episode sounds a bit like we're underwater, but we have new audio equipment and have remedied the situation. We hope you'll bear with us through this first podcast because it feels important to set the context of why we're launching We're the Leaders We're Looking For. Just know that future episodes will improve greatly, and thank you for sticking with us.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, how you doing?
It's a pretty good day in the neighborhood. I'm excited to be sitting here with you because there's been some developments in how we want to continue moving our message forward for United Way of the Wine Country. Before the big reveal, although I have a feeling the name of this adventure will maybe reveal some of it, will you tell us what got us to this place of wanting to really amplify our voices in a different and exciting way?
Sure. Well, we are, without burying the lead, I'll just say we're launching a podcast.
Yay!
And the podcast is called We Are the Leaders We're Looking For. So here's one of those stories where community and connection and belonging building, are already like helping to fortify me. I've been in an online meditation group with a Native American elder named Charlie Toledo for 2 years now. And it's an online Zoom meditation. And Charlie leads us through, guided mindfulness and breathing exercises and native story and science and all of that. And this little community of women who participate weekly in this space, contribute to this space, is often very rich with not only what Charlie contributes, but what those of us who are participating contribute in terms of resources. And a few months ago, one of the participants in the meditation shared an essay by Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. And that essay includes this language. And I'm happy to share the link to the essay in the podcast. But this is what really moved me after kind of creating the context for inviting us to recognize that we're the leaders we're seeking. She, and I'm paraphrasing, says this: "Please do not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times. Do not lose hope. The fact is, we were made for these times. We have been learning, practicing, training for, and just waiting to meet this exact plane of engagement. We are definitely the leaders we have been waiting for, and we have been raised since childhood for this precise time. You are built well for these times, despite your stints of doubt, your frustrations, or even feeling that you have lost the map entirely. You are not without resources. You are not alone." So,
wow. I can see how that's inspired the whole picture.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you to Clarissa Pinkola Estes for writing it to begin with.
Yeah, she wrote it actually in 2001.
Wow.
And then she republished it in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's circulating again.
Out of necessity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel a whole settling in my body. Just hearing that we were made for this time.
Yeah, it's encouraging and emboldening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I hope comes from these conversations. And what led to this development in our community engagement and movement building was actually kind of a constellation of things that have been evolving over quite some time. Importantly, United Way, the Wine Country, relaunched our newsletter several months ago. And we also recently published an op-ed piece in the Press Democrat concerning what we feared would be the adverse impacts of congressional approval of H.R. 1. And now that it has been approved and by Congress and signed by the President of the United States, what is unfolding in the aftermath of these last 10 days or so are a whole series of assessments locally, at the state level, at the federal level, of how the implementation of H.R. 1 is going to affect our community. And along with that, that process, a lot of the community have reached out to United Way to let us know, one, they really appreciated the op-ed piece because it really framed in an easily understood and accessible way just how important it was and is to pay attention to what's happening now, and helped people to understand how reductions in food benefits and reductions in Medicaid support and the elimination of earned income tax credits, reduced eligibility for earned income tax credits and the child tax credit will affect people in the community who are related to the people who are reaching out to us. The people who are reaching out to us, largely have been longtime United Way contributors, including the son of one of United Way of the Wine Country's founders, who is a well-known businessman and past United Way leader. And it was our conversation that led to thinking we need to create an opportunity for all of us to understand that we're the leaders we're looking for. And that we are built for these times, even though we may be quite uncertain about what's unfolding and very uncomfortable about how it's already affecting our community. We get the opportunity to show up however we can, just by having the courage to do so, being willing to take the risks, and being vulnerable by standing in our truth as people who believe in community and believe in belonging for ourselves and all others.
Wow. Okay. So a magical mixture of just the right ingredients came together in right timing.
Yeah.
And from that comes this podcast. So what can listeners expect to receive when they are joining and listening to the podcast?
Well, what I hope they'll receive is the opportunity to see themselves, see what's inside of them mirrored in the folks that we will highlight, whose work we'll highlight in interviews and panels maybe, opportunities to see them at work. I hope that they will see and hear community voices that are new to them, and that they will feel connected to and moved by, and that will illuminate narratives that maybe they haven't heard before, and help shift mindset to open their, whatever their worldview might be, to parts of our community that have been invisible to them, that they drive by every day but miss. But they are nonetheless connected to. So, as I've shared in other conversations that you and I have had, I believe in our essential oneness and connection to everything. And my hope is that everyone who joins the podcast and who engages with the podcast will begin to see and experience that too. And that from that, they'll experience more hope than despair, more of a sense of how they can harness their personal power to invest in community and belonging building, and appreciate how all of us are a part of the safety net, and it's imperative that we come together. We can survive and build more resiliency as a community when we build more connection.
We have talked a lot about how conversations like this, where we're really exploring in depth and with vulnerability and with courage some of the hard things that we're facing, how that's the way through.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to me to think about uplifting folks who want to engage in those conversations and have wisdom to share with us. So it sounds like the podcast is one part community education, like here are these resources available in our community. One part community engagement, like get to know the people who are doing this work. And then one part, like sit down and have a cup of coffee with a cool homie.
Yeah.
Like, and then what unfolds from there is around connection and belonging and community building.
Yeah.
I use that word community a whole lot in there, and I think that's a thread that I'm hearing is a big part of all of what you're talking about.
Right.
So that's yummy. So can a podcast create community? Yes, it can. Here we are.
Yeah, it can. Some of my favorite podcasts, are produced by different folks. A couple I happen to know. My best friend from college has a podcast called Room at the Table, and I share Betsy Cerullo's podcasts with friends when what she's focusing on, really resonates with me, and I think it's going to resonate with these folks. I'll share it on LinkedIn, I'll share it on Facebook, or I'll share it by text, and then we become this little learning pod together, right? And then I have a couple of other friends whose podcast, The Behaviorist, I've shared with lots and lots and lots of people. They really focus on organizational development and mindfulness at the center of organizational development, leadership, and management. And I love the way that Kedron Crosby and Sarah Colantonio have developed that platform for centering mindfulness and mindfulness-related values in how we work and work together, because we spend more time with our workplace peeps than we do at home with our families. So while Betsy's Room at the Table podcast focuses a lot on personal leadership development, especially for folks who are leading and maybe, well, we're all firsts in the world, right? There's nobody else like you or me. They're firsts in a lot of other ways. They're part of the LGBTQI plus community. They also may be people of color. They may be people with access and functional needs, and who are leading. They're women who are leading in non-traditional fields. They're entrepreneurs who are doing things that have never been done before. Her podcast is really focused on fortifying, the within, whereas the behaviorist is focused on fortifying the people and the organizations. I guess where the leaders we're looking for might be complementary to them. I aspire for it to be complementary for them, as inspiring leadership, from the community at this, at this ground and grassroots level, where there's an abundant opportunity for us to step into the leadership void, because there's so much that's needed. And so much of what's needed is for us to just liberate ourselves, to show up as our one true self.
I'm torn. I have two directions to go. Maybe I can check them both. The fun direction is, my favorite podcast is The Moth.
Yeah.
True stories told live in front of an audience.
So
no
courageous.
notes. It's courageous. It's raw. It's funny. It's horrifying. It's life. And I get to walk. Sorry, microphone. I get to walk away with little snapshots that I would never, in my daily travels, be able to understand or engage with or think about. So I deeply appreciate folks who are telling their stories, and it seems like there's a layer of that here too, that we're making space for people to share their stories.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to me, the idea that we get to see a little behind the scenes of people in our community, and what they're up to, and how they're feeling in sort of an honest format that feels really powerful and important as we're talking about coming together as a community and community care. So I appreciate in advance the leadership of the folks sharing where they really are in the world, and how they're really doing.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be exciting. Really cool.
Yeah. Okay, so that was that side.
Okay.
This side is, talking about emergency preparedness. That's almost, I want to say, kind of a safe topic.
Right.
It's necessary. Sometimes we don't want to think about it. There's trauma attached, especially here in Sonoma County, with fires and floods and all the things that have happened in rapid succession here, and elsewhere in the world. Then there's this other stuff that's happening as a result of HR 1. These genuine horrors that people are carrying and walking with, and that is not necessarily safe to talk about, and it's not safe to listen about either. Sometimes, right? Like, it's hard to hear those stories. It's hard to stay present, especially, I want to say, with folks like me who have white skin and privilege and other kinds of privilege, who can simply choose not to think about it, who are not impacted on a daily basis. And so how do we engage us on a regular basis in these conversations? How do we grow a listening base and build the stamina, right? Because it's a muscle to stay present for this hard stuff, for the grief, and for the genuine, people feeling hunted and unsafe, like genuinely unsafe in the world, not just uncomfortable, but unsafe. Like, how do we make space for those conversations? Because I think that'll come up if we're talking to leaders in our community, that those are going to come up. How do we bring folks into the conversation and help them stay?
Well, what I hope, so I'll just say, what comes to mind first is that I have shared previously that I'm such a fan of Valerie Kaur's work and the memoir she's created in Sage Warrior. And in a small way, I suppose creating this podcast and creating this space to have these conversations is how United Way is warrioring, because we're harnessing the resources, including the connections and the history that we have in our organization, in our community, to connect people and companies and service providers and people with need and so on, to create the healing that's needed now. And so telling that warrioring story, I think, is like, in a way, the evolving United Way, part of the evolving United Way purpose. What we don't talk about typically, but I hope we will talk about in the conversations that we have, is how we sage. And the sage warrior, the sage work is the work that we do to restore ourselves and to nurture and support and grieve what's going on inside of us and all the different parts of who we are inside and our teams, as well as the communities that we touch. How do we sage and warrior symbiotically so that we can, affect the ecosystem at the root causes, to interrupt what is causing the struggle and pain, and replace that with what's going to promote healing, promote wholeness, promote connection, build hope, build joy. Because when we experience joy, then we really experience one of your favorite words, liberation and sovereignty and healing. So my hope is that this will become a space where we can sage and warrior together. And that will become a space that other people will want to be a part of, because they're seeing modeled in our work and conversations together something that they can do that's easily accessible to them, and that they can then share with their communities while they're connecting, I hope, with ours.
Yeah. So there's two pieces of that feel really potent to me. One is staying in a sage warrior balance does not require crawling across the desert on your knees. It doesn't require a huge heavy lift. It can be that simple to connect in with other people, with how we're feeling, acknowledging it, and it can shift. And that leads into part two, which is sitting with the saging pieces and sitting with those big feelings allows them to shift. And then what follows is the outcome that we're desiring, that we often try to skip around. We try to skip around the grief and the heaviness and the pain of acknowledging where we are to get to the joy and the resilience and the we ask ourselves, why am I not happy? Well, because we got all this stuff,
Yeah, we're not tending our own wounds.
Yeah, so
this creates that intention in that space.
Indeed, and you use the language of models it. Like, we get to model.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the hard stuff, and here's the aftermath of hard stuff is ease and grace and connectivity and resilience. So that's pretty yummy, Lisa. I'm not gonna lie.
Let's hope the community likes it too.
I'm probably gonna listen to this.
Let's hope the community likes it too.
Yeah.
Can I just add a little context? I'm such a context person.
You are the context queen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the last 2 months, I've been to 2 different United Way meetings,
Mm-hmm.
In which the ideas that are being shared now by the Institute for the Future about the Bani context within which we now live.
Mm.
Bani standing for brittleness, anxiety, nonlinearity, and incomprehensibility.
Our friends.
Yes, the Bani context. So we'll put a link in this sharing that we do to a really fantastic article that was written a few years ago that summarizes the Bani context. But what's important for folks to know is that we live in a time now when I think it's fair to say, are experiencing like a daily onslaught of outrageousness and chaos and insult, confusion, disinformation, misinformation, and we're especially being challenged to sustain belief in systems and institutions and in people that are brittle and breaking. And the brittleness of things that we have lived with, had faith in, could trust for generations, as they break, they expand and intensify the uncertainty and the discomfort that we were already feeling yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. So systems shatter, and we're seeing like support systems shatter before our eyes. So that's the brittleness experience. From that, we experience anxiety, right? And there are so many things that are accelerating the anxiety that we feel. We feel like, our social media feed maybe is or isn't enriching our lives, right? We feel weak and weakened by the daily onslaught of the breakdown in the things that we used to be able to trust, that were predictable, that we could be assured would be there when we needed them, like the safety net that may be invisible but is there. And things don't make sense. Things are coming from out of nowhere and surprising us. There's a shock and awe in all of it. The non-linearity is disorienting, right? And then lastly, there's so much. It's hard not to use an explicative when I say there is so much, but there is so bleeping much going on. And that is difficult to wrap our minds around.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our Bonnie context is.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be in this Bonnie context for quite a while,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what's been on my mind a lot for the last several weeks, the last couple of months, since this framework was introduced to all of us in the United Way worldwide movement is, so what's the antidote?
Mm-hmm.
If this is, the darkness that is descending
Mm-hmm.
on us, what light can I and we spark and shine
Mm.
and inspire, so that other individuals and organizations like ours feel emboldened
Mm.
to spark and shine their light
Mm-hmm.
and inspire others. So the answer to brittleness is to develop resilience, to become bendable
Mm.
and adaptable, to have the capacity to pivot by having plan B and C and D and E and F. The antidote to being anxious is to become still, as Charlie Toledo often reminds us, to become mindful, to tap into our inner wise person's voice, to help quiet our anxious self, who I've begun to have conversations with, and breathe and listen deeply to both of their voices. Anxiety has been protecting me from the things I fear,
Mm-hmm.
but anxiety, as we saw in the movie in Inside Out 2, anxiety can become paralyzed,
Mm-hmm.
and into that space, joy, our inner wise person,
Mm-hmm.
must come to balance, to bring balance,
Mm-hmm.
and to give us access to hope again. The answer to nonlinearity is to recognize that, dots may not connect, but maybe that's okay
Mm-hmm.
for now. I trust that what needs to be revealed to us will be revealed to us just when we need it.
Mm-hmm.
And to rest in just accepting that there are things going on that I don't know and don't understand and can't control. But this is the next right thing for me to do right now. And let me focus on doing this exquisitely. And then I'll move on to the next right thing. I'll do that exquisitely. And I'll take care of what I need to do, so that I can stay my course and keep my faith. And then regarding the incomprehensible, again, to listen to that inner wise person inside of ourselves and develop stronger muscles to trust our intuition, to listen deeply to and trust our intuition. That's how we build the muscles and build the well of inner resources that we need, so that we can be resilient personally, and so that we can help build resiliency in our organizations, in our families, in our communities, in our neighborhoods. So I hope that, taking that context into consideration as we begin to invite people to these conversations, that we will be contributing to our own and to others connection and belonging and resiliency, and that'll be good for our whole community.
Beautiful. Thank you for adding that context in. Is there anything else you want to tell us about what we can expect or receive or enjoy about this podcast?
No, I mean, my invitation is if you've gotten this far in listening to this conversation and want to join the conversation, please join us. If you want to be a part of the conversation, please let me know. You have my email.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Laurie Lynn.
So, folks, thanks for listening. We're grateful that you've joined us in community today and that you believe, just like we do, in the importance of building belonging, resilience, and justice in this region. We know it will have ripple effects across the state and across the country and around the world. So your presence is really meaningful, and we're very grateful for it. If you'd like to get even more involved with the work that United Way of the Wine Country is doing, please join us. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us in social media. You'll find us in Facebook, and you'll find us in LinkedIn, and you'll find us in Nextdoor. We're banned from Instagram. I'll leave that to you to figure out why that might have happened. Sign up for our newsletter at our website, www.unitedwaywinecountry.org, and share our conversations with a friend. Feel free to have the same conversations that we're having here with your friends. The more of us having conversations like this, the more we'll all appreciate that we are the leaders that we're looking for. And we're just looking for a place to get started. Thanks for starting here.